Hi everybody. Today we're going to spend some time to talk about a very important topic. This is called closures. This is kind of a fun thing in JavaScript that I think people should learn about. It is also one of the questions that was requested by one of my viewers. So I think we're going to spend a little bit of time to learn about it. So what is closures? Closures is actually a very simple concept. You could think about closures as almost imagine yourself, you're living in a house, right? And each person that lives in that house has access to things in the house, right? So in closures, it's effectively the same thing. You have a function, and you can define variables within that function. And if you were to have sub-functions within that, well, those sub-functions have access to the variables in that context. So what I mean by that, let's go dive into some code and probably you'll understand a little bit more. This is actually important because it helps us save a little bit on future ways of writing verbose code, and also there's some benefits on, it's very similar to classes but it's less fat. But anyways, let's look at some examples on see how closure can help us. All right, let's look at the code. Right, I think it's right here. All right, let's go. All right, so closures, let's use an example. Let's create a function, right, and call it a pizza, right? And say I want to give it some toppings, you know, typically. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna start defining a variable in here, say like the size of the pizza or how many slices. I'll call it slices in this pizza. This pizza will default to have 12 slices. All right, so in this function I'm gonna write sub functions, which is gonna be like function, I'm gonna call it eat. All this really does is just eat a piece of my slice, take a slice of my pizza. Okay, and I'm gonna console log it and just say it so you guys will know what we're eating. I'm just gonna say I just ate a piece of pizza, right? And I'm gonna put a template literal here so we can actually check how many slices are remaining. Okay, remaining, great, cool. So all this really does is eat a slice, right, and then console log the remaining slices, right? So let's write another function here, function description here, boom, boom. All right, all this one will really do is just return our console log remaining. Let's template literal this as well. Remaining pizza slices equals, bam, and just say slice. Cool. So all this really does is tell us, okay, how many slices are in my pizza back? Oh gosh, I can't spell. Pieces. I just ate. Geez. Pieces. Oh, pieces. All right. Can't spell today. All right, cool. So you have pretty much two things, two sub functions with this main function, and I'm gonna be returning a value. These, so you have access to it. I'm gonna go return the eat function and also the description function, right? So what I'm really simply doing here is just exposing certain elements that looks somewhat like a class, but not really. Classes are kind of heavy. This is a little bit more lighter weight, and I kind of like using this method to expose sub functions. But let's see what this actually does. So when we go back into the context of thinking about what closure is all about, you can see over here, for example, all it really is saying that anything that's wrapped within the main pizza function, well, they have a reference access to slices or slice, right? So meaning that when you invoke eat, right, you actually just have an access to this 12 and reduce it by 1, right? So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll go and do some let pepperoni pizza will equal to, oh, I forgot to put a topping. Here we go, on my topping. Cool. Pizza. Okay. I'm gonna go my pepperoni pizza, my pep pizza. It's basically a pizza, which I'm gonna pass in. Let's call it cheese pizza because it's easier. Cheese pizza. So let's try seeing this in action. All right, I'm gonna go and call my pizza, my pep.description. Description here. What I would expect in this is like I'm invoking this sub function here. It would say on the first instance saying that, oh, I have 12 slices of pizza and it's a cheese pizza. And then I'm gonna make another function here calling the eat sub function. And the eat function, all it really does is take the reference of slices and reduces it by 1. So this double negative is effectively the same thing as that minus is equal to the same thing as this, by the way, equals the same thing as that, you know, but it's just the shorthand. So to reduce it by 1. So we'll probably say like, okay, I have only 11 slices left, right? And then I could get another description to show that I have 11 slices of, you know, cheese pizza. All right, let's run this code. Node. Oh, let's save it first. Node sample2.js. Cool. So as we expected, this particular eat function within the sub function has access, even though it hasn't declared this variable, it has access to its parent variable, right? So this is the same concept about how I'm saying that imagine the pizza as the house, and each of these sub functions are like people, right? And these people have access to anything that's within this main function. So as a reference point. Now, this you may ask yourself like, why is this important? You know, I'm just, you know, making a fancy way of doing things. Well, let's look at another example that will actually be pretty useful. In this one, I'm just gonna be a little bit more like copy and paste code because I don't want to retype it. All right, let's get some code here. Cool. So one of the things that we can use closures, or at least be very beneficial with it, is actually on recursion as well. Maybe later on I'll explain what the whole idea of recursion is because it may seem intimidating at first, but if you want to think of what recursion is, just put two mirrors looking side by side and you see this like tunneling effect. That's basically what people usually explain that as like recursion. What it really means is like a function that calls itself again and again and again and again and again until it reaches an exit condition, right? But anyways, we're not talking about recursion right now on this topic. I could go on the next video. We're gonna focus on closures. So I'm gonna show you how using a simple recursive function I wrote and using closures to save us a little bit of time. Cool. So in this function, all it really does effectively is, counts +1, right? Because it's very simple. So I'm basically creating a solution number, right? I'm creating a sub function in here, which all it really does is it adds a number, or it increases the solution number by 1, right? And then it prints out that number. And then I'm going to call myself and reduce it, right? So the number I'm going to pass in here is going to be basically the number I pass in counter, right? So that's really simple. All it really does is like if I pass number 5, it's going to go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I'm going to be printing the solution, right? So here you save some extra code from writing, but let's see what it actually presents us. Counter and put a number 5. Cool. Let me hide this code so it doesn't annoy us. Bloop. All right, cool. All right, save that and let's run that. So all it does is, I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That's simple. So if we didn't do it in recursion, right? How will we actually write this same function? So if we didn't use, sorry, not recursion, but if you didn't use, or we didn't take advantage of closure, how can we do this, right? What you probably would need to do is like literally take this function out, go in here, create a sub function, right? And pass in that solution variable, right? Delete all this stuff, and add number, or I'll return that. And then I need to create another parameter to input here. We'll call it solution, or at least in this case, something to kick it off, which would be 0. And effectively over here, you have to do also pass in the solution. Yeah. So this is like equivalent of what we did in the before. You see how it's I personally think that this is a little bit more confusing. Because you're passing more and more parameters into a function. I like to keep my parameters simple, but this effectively does the same thing. Let's go check it out. Cool, simple. All right, well, now I showed you like 2 really simple examples of what closure is. It's really not that hard. To summarize again, it really simply means that you have access to anything of your parent function, right? If you have a function and you have sub functions, and you want to get access to variables that's within my parent, you have reference access to it. No, there is actually one important factor that I forgot to mention. And that is what happens, what do you guys think would happen if I have a variable called function remake? And I'm gonna set this as like slice, or let slice equals to 99 and console log. This is probably one of the questions that people would ask you if you were working at a startup. Slice. Cool. So sometimes if you work in a startup, you know, they'll ask more like JavaScripty questions, but if you're working for one of the big FANG groups or whatnot, they don't bother asking these. They usually focus on algorithm questions. But what do you think would produce if I call this pep.remake? What do you think the output would be? Take a wild guess. So for those who guessed that, okay, my slice will actually be 99, you're actually right. The reason why this is the case is that, oh, I need to make sure I remake, expose that out. The reason why this is the case is that within this internal scope, usually you would scope your context, you always focus stuff that is closest to you first. If that thing doesn't exist closest to you, you go to the next higher level, right? Up to the point where it's like, okay, my last function that wraps around it. And that's where you pretty much get your value, right? So let's check the number here. Boom, slice 99 as expected. Cool. So in here, like I said, because this is within the internal segment here, this doesn't reference this point anymore because you already defined it the closest to you. Now, if I want to go and change it like this, for example, now I'm actually changing this value up here, right? Because I'm not redefining a new variable named with the same thing, right? So this is, you know, in a context like very simple. Again, this is closure. Like I said, it's very simple. If you guys don't understand or want more examples about it, let me know. Leave the comment and hit that subscribe if you like this type of video. And yeah, this is pretty much closure. All right, thank you.